As I indicated, there are four major factors by the rating agencies, and that second factor is finances. And what I mean by finances is several critical elements of finances that local governments are looked at, and hopefully they're looked at favorably. And the case here in Franklin County, we find that all four of the five of these factors, five of the factors, Franklin County has very high marks in. Number one, the property tax rate. Number two, structurally balanced budgets. Number three, annual financial results by audits. Number four, it's fund balances or rainy day funds, if you want to think of it that way. And then five, compliance with financial policy guidelines. The first of the five critical factors is the county's real estate tax history. Pleased to report that the county fares very favorably when looked at versus its peers. Our tax rate at 48 cents right now is the lowest amongst our peers in the region. And even at some point with a revalve that's been reset or will be reset, the county still looks very favorably and compared to its neighbors and as well as statewide. A second critical factor is our annual financial results. As you can see here, our general fund revenues year after year exceed our expenditures, which basically means that the county, if they were a citizen, is putting money away on an annual basis, or at the very least is not overspending its budget. And this comes in spite of a difficult financial times. I'd like to talk for a moment or two about another critical category of finances, and that's fund balance or reserve levels. I think a lot of us have the sense that, and rightly so, every dollar of a local government belongs to we the people. And that's true. At the same time, we also recognize that local governments like ourselves have to have adequate fund balances or adequate reserves to pay our bills. And so one of the reasons why a local government needs an ample fund balance is recognizing that the bills that we pay are not the same every single month. It's just the way local governments work. And so we need to have a certain amount of dollars on hand. In addition, we also found, unfortunately, over the last several months, between hurricanes and tornadoes and all sorts of natural disasters, closer to central Virginia, we saw even an earthquake, that local governments from time to time need certain dollars unexpectedly. And rather than have to go into a bank and borrow on an immediate basis, which actually local governments have a difficult time doing mechanically, it takes upwards of 30 to 45 to 60 days to do, we always need to be sure that we have some cash on hand to pay some emergency bills, even if we ultimately get a good portion of that back by the federal government. So with that being said, one of the things that's critical is to be sure that we have a rainy day fund. And here in Franklin County, we have a policy that makes sure that we have certain dollars available that allows us to pay our bills and not have to borrow on a short-term basis to pay those bills when the cash flow is not there. We also have enough ample reserves to make sure that if there is an unforeseen emergency, we're there and we're able to use those monies. I'm delighted to say that for the last several years, the county has been very good about making sure that it always has that reserve that's necessary. Having said that, you will find, though, that the county's reserve is really very modest relative to its overall budget. Just for an example, the county's reserve is basically the equivalent of about 1.5 paydays, or 1.5 pay periods, about a month and a half of reserves on an annualized basis. Just think about it. If you or I were to lose our job, or perhaps you've lost your job, the focus would be not to have just 1 month's money as a reserve. Hopefully we'd have a few months, as it helps us to get through very difficult periods. Same holds true for the county. In addition, the other critical thing about having the fund balance is that the county needs desperately to be sure that it's in good stead with the credit rating agencies. Having said that, we've over the last last 2 years alone, we have financed or refinanced 4 different outstanding loans to bring our interest rates down and have produced some $600,000 of savings to the county just by being sure that we've had funds in the bank and that we've done those things that I've been talking about and will talk about over the next couple of moments. Another graphic here, as you can see, highlights the fund balance and comparative fund balance of Franklin County with our neighbors throughout the region and the state. While our fund balance, as I indicated, is adequate, it is by no means excessive. And as you can see here, the regional average is even higher than what Franklin County has right now. I don't believe there's any decision or need to raise our fund balance over where it is right now. It seems to be quite solid for where we are and where we're going and where we've been. But at the same time, we just want to be careful in realizing that there are many of those entities out there that enjoy a larger fund balance than we do. It is our management practice beliefs that by having about a month and a half to nearly 2 months of reserves, we are adequate. We are safeguarding the county in the unforeseen future of some problems that have occurred in other places, such as those tornadoes, the hurricanes, earthquakes, etc. Another critical factor that the rating agencies look at is our debt and the way we manage our debt. Naturally, you've been reading a whole lot and seeing a whole lot about debt levels nationally, internationally. It's been a crisis everywhere. I'm pleased to report that here in Franklin County, our debt levels and our debt management has been quite positive. Positive by virtue of the fact that we really have, relative to our peers and on an absolute basis, a very modest level of debt. And I'm going to show you in the next few minutes, it's one of the real credit strengths of Franklin County. Now, there's several key factors that we'll talk about that folks look at from the rating agencies and the credit markets when they think about debt and debt levels. And I'm just going to walk you through a few of those in the next moment or two. First, let's take a look at the profile of the county's outstanding debt and how rapidly it's paid off. As you can see here on the graphic, the county has about $32 million of outstanding debt. The good news is that within the next 10 years, almost 85% of all that debt is paid off. So think about it. If you're fortunate to own a home and have a 30-year mortgage, what's the chances that in the next 10 years, almost all of that is paid off? Well, that's the situation that Franklin County finds itself in, and it's a very solid situation to be in, and it's one that gives us opportunities if indeed we have additional capital needs, which we almost certainly will over the next 5 to 10 years. Several opportunities are created by the fact that we have such a rapid pay down in our debt and also a very modest levels of debt. As you can see here on this graphic, the county basically, depending upon what critical assumptions we want to use in terms of having new debt or taking on new debt over the next several years, what we see is the county has anywhere between $55 and $70 million of debt it could take on over the next decade to 2 decades without having any effective negative impact on the current budget or future budgets of the county. So that said, if indeed there are certain capital programs or capital needs that are identified by the citizens and the various boards here in the county, there is that capacity for taking on new debt without having any impact whatsoever on the tax rate that you currently pay or the cash flows that you currently dedicate towards capital projects. Thanks for watching Segment 2. Please stay in touch for Segment 3.